Welcome to the Central Safety Group first presentation for 2023. We've just got through our big 60th anniversary year and ploughing ahead into the New Year's program. So we're very excited to have Helen to talk to us today about the current job market. Just as a reminder, this session will be followed by the AGM for 2022, so we hope that you can stay online for that presentation. And while Helen is talking, if you could stay on mute, that would be great to cut down any background noise. However, if you have any questions, use the chat function and we'll make sure that we get through to Helen to cover that information. And there will be an opportunity to engage in question time. So make a note of your questions along the way and we'll have a more informal chat at the end of the presentation. As said, Helen doesn't really require any introduction. She's been in the OHS market for a number of years, helping a number of us that I'm aware of through their recruitment activities. So yes, welcome to Helen from HOK Talent Solutions, and I'll turn over for a very interesting presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen in a moment, everyone. Don't be surprised by the title. It is Valentine's Day, so I've decided to make the presentation a little loving and a bit of humour in there, because I know that talking about recruitment and retaining staff can be a little bit of a dry subject. So I'm just going to share my screen, so bear with me. You don't want that one? Hang on. Here we go. So here it is. So today it's about how an inflated job market has impacted dating, marriage and divorce, otherwise known as the employee life cycle. So it still is about the OHS job market. It still is about recruiting and retaining staff. But if we think of the employee life cycle and the role of a recruiter or a hiring manager, it is about dating, it is about marriage, and it is about divorce at times. So happy Valentine's Day, everybody. What do I know about dating? Well, as Nan said, I have been in the game for a long time and I've matchmaked a lot of organisations. So I've been on lots of dates, probably thousands of them, and also found organisations their perfect match. Also, just to draw your attention to my CEO podcast series, if you haven't tuned into that, it is available on Apple. Helen O'Keefe Talks Safety, and we have a number of CEOs who have given very generous time to talk about what safety means in their organisations. So let's look at the employee life cycle and how it is a little bit like relationships. So first of all, we've got the blue one there, which is attraction. So attraction is about where organisations go out to market ready to date. Then we've got recruitment, which is actually the dating phase. So recruitment is about finding the right person to date. And then we've got onboarding. So you've been on your date and you found that perfect person and you're kind of married to them. And the onboarding usually is the best stage, is that honeymoon phase. Then we've got enablement and development, part of that employee life cycle. So enablement and development is how to keep growing the relationship and really building a solid partnership. Then we have retention, and this is about how do you keep the relationship alive? How do you at times also save the marriage? And inevitably, sometimes there comes separation. Sometimes people will be disenchanted, sometimes they'll be bored, and sometimes they'll want to go and join greener pastures. So sometimes you just have to let them go. So if you look at that cycle, it is all about relationships and managing relationships. We have become, as job seekers, really selective, and that's because the pandemic changed a lot about how we worked. So in this inflated job market, where there are a lot of opportunities, candidates are likely to be selective. If you think back, we worked from home and we discovered that we could be productive. We might have walked, we might have exercised, we might have cooked more, and invariably we did it in our own time, juggling our work with our home life. We were home to watch the 6 p.m. news if we wanted to. None of that was good news back then. And then the housework was done before the weekend, if you were like my house anyway. And we saved on travelling costs. So all of this are the benefits that we learnt and that we actually learnt we could juggle. And so candidates are very selective now when they're sizing up the new organisation. So the impact that has had on the employee life cycle. So on the dating, which is the attraction and recruitment. So attraction recruitment has become harder and harder because it is so candidate-led. In 2022, we referenced 8,500 health and safety roles advertised in Australia across LinkedIn and Seek. That equates to around 150 to 200 roles per month advertised alone in Victoria, and we know that a great many roles don't get advertised. That data also tells us that a great many people changed jobs last year. Therefore, they're potentially not ready for a new role in 2023. Coupled with this, we're still suffering from low immigration rates, and then some candidates change professions. They decided to freelance, they moved states, they had a sea change, a tree change, and it's still creating the perfect storm out there. There's also been another change to this attraction and recruitment phase. It has been candidate behaviour in terms of that selectiveness. We're also seeing that has resulted sometimes in a half-hearted approach to a new role that they're looking at. So there's sometimes that commitment to a process can be questioned. Examples around that, which perhaps some of you have also felt, there have been examples that I have experienced in candidates who've gone through to the final interview stage and then they've pulled out because they've taken another role. Or candidates haven't not known how to manage the fact that they're juggling more than one role and have perhaps fabricated the truth around why they're not available for a second interview or why they're not available to take a phone call about the job offer they're about to receive. So I think, when before COVID, we were attracting and we were recruiting people face to face. And that took an effort on candidates' behalf. They had to actually get in their car or get on transport and go to an office rather than just dialing into an hour Zoom. So therefore, sometimes that commitment needs to be questioned. The other thing has changed is, how organisations attract candidates. So we have seen organisations doing some really great stuff, starting with their position descriptions, because really it needs to sell the organisation just as much as it does the role, because that's what candidates are sizing up. So the position description becomes an advertisement. The mandatory requirements, the must-haves, they should really be revisited as well. The golden rule in an inflated market like this one is to really find someone with the right behaviours and then teach them the rest. So revisit the perks too. What is it that you offer? What are those benefits? What is something tangible but maybe your competitors don't offer as well? Money does talk, but not always. Sometimes it is about flexibility. It is about other perks that you might be able to offer. And I think the other thing too is, have you got all of your processes outlined before you go to market to attract and recruit? A really great idea is to be able to put diary times in for interviews so that there are not delays. It's all about moving quickly still in this market. Now, marriage, once you've onboarded somebody, it's about making sure that you keep them engaged. So as soon as they sign the employment contract, take over from the recruiter that you're working with, whether that's an internal recruiter or one of us, the externals, take over. They want to hear from you. They don't want to hear from us. And we have seen many examples of where there has been no engagement and candidates have not felt that connection. Therefore, they've not started with roles. they've been approached during their notice periods about other positions. They felt more of an attraction to that role, unfortunately, or their organisation that they're currently working in has asked them to stay. So I think you just need to engage. And we've seen that work really well, where people are invited in for coffee catch-ups, meeting the team, reading information. All of those things are really important. And then the other really tough thing for hiring managers now, or people managers, is the fact that while you're onboarding new employees and looking to retain them, you can't forget about your other staff. So the good managers are not forgetting the rest of the team, because they might be having weekly calls from recruiters, matchmakers, about potential dates. So you have to be aware of the needs of your entire team, not just the person that you've brought in. So that's where your job is getting harder and harder. Then the separation piece, sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes you can't have somebody stay, and that's okay. Sometimes they might have developed too much for your organisation. They might have outgrown their role. There's no other opportunity. So now it's time for separation. It's really important though how they're exited. If they have a poor experience, that can cause brand damage. And again, that cycle of attracting candidates starts being harder and harder. So the 5 tips for a happy marriage. As I said, engage from the time the candidate signs that offer letter. So take over the process, engage with them, let them know that you're there, support them through their resignation, which can be really tricky sometimes. Be that face, be that person that they can't wait to join. Ensure no hiccup. This is a really important one. So, we recently had an example where we placed a person who started with a large organisation in January. The logins, they weren't able to get into the system. They didn't have accessibility to the system for a couple of weeks. And there was a hiccup with payroll, and they found out that they weren't getting paid for 8 weeks. It wasn't a great experience, and that person was really questioning whether they had made the right decision in joining the organisation. It was fixed, but look at the detail, ensure there are no hiccups, ensure the person has the best start with your organisation. The structured onboarding, a lot of organisations now are having buddy systems. Some of the bigger ones, of course, can afford to do that. So, buddy systems, also the structured onboarding means don't let them do their onboarding. Make sure that they're supported the whole way. Make sure they have meetings in their diaries. Make sure they have pre-readings sent to them. Really give them a great experience. And really, the honeymoon phase, no real expectations. Let them really assimilate into the organisation, get to know the organisation, and then deliver. Then work flexibility. It is important. We're still being asked this a lot more than we are about the salary. And it doesn't always mean that people want to work from home. So more and more we are seeing people really comfortable about coming back into the office. However, work flexibility, as we looked at in another slide, we've all been used to that flexibility and life outside of work. So whatever that means to the individual bringing in, give them the work flexibility. And again, understand what makes your employees tick, which probably goes into that flexibility piece. Understand what's really important to them and really get that happening for them. So they would be our 5 tips to remember as you are engaging in the process. Then the final word, I really wish that I did have a magnifying glass that worked to see what's happening. So January, the employment market started really strong. So there were 135 roles advertised across Seek and LinkedIn for safety practitioners. And January is usually a quiet month, so certainly I was surprised about how busy January was. Last year was huge. So January 2022 broke records. This one was probably not too far behind. So it is still a strong market. We also saw additional specialist roles joining the WHS family. I'm not sure if anybody else out there has as well, but sustainability seems to be raising its head and coming more and more into that work health and safety job family. The other one is also mental health specialists. So we're seeing more and more organisations, particularly in the health sector, bringing in mental health specialists to join their wellbeing teams. The recession rumours, okay, so, KPMG released a report predicting unemployment to reach 4.5% in Australia by 2024. And of course, there's widespread media commentary about the impact of rising inflation, high interest rates, and wage growth stagnation, potentially resulting in the loss of an estimated 150,000 jobs by the end of 2023. And candidates have started to feel that. I have had people this month say they're just waiting to see what happens in the next few months before dipping their toe in the water. So this is also going to be an impact on the job market. But we're not convinced, or I'm not convinced, this recession rumour is going to have a huge impact on the health and safety job market. Many industries employing larger safety teams are still set to experience high growth, particularly in construction, mining, and professional services. Then grow your own talent. So again, we talked about this before, really importantly, look at the fit, grow your own talent. Still so many companies neglect this. If you're in a larger organisation, do you have any health and safety reps who are ready to step up? Look internally before you look externally. And then be serious. If you're a candidate, be serious about your job search. And then if you're an employer, also be serious. Make sure that you're not just going out to market to see who's out there and then, pulling back on that. The other thing is to be serious around your processes. Make sure that everything is timely, everything's moving swiftly, and there's no delay. Also, in offer letters, that can cause havoc when you've made a verbal offer to a candidate, but then the documentation takes 2 weeks to come out because they won't resign until they get that letter. Meanwhile, another organisation can come along with an amazing opportunity for them. So please, be serious about the recruitment side of things. And the other thing is, don't anticipate long shortlists. If you are advertising a role and you have 2 fantastic candidates, don't wait to benchmark them, go forward with them. So that's the final word, and what I wanted to, I guess, tie the presentation up with. I still feel it's going to be a candidate-led market this year, particularly these first few months of the year. And so it's about making sure that you put your best foot forward if you are an employer or if you are a candidate. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, thank you, Helen. I've just taken myself off mute. It took me a while to find that. One thing, I'm going to butt in with a question before I invite everybody else.
Hang on a sec. Helen, could you just stop sharing your screen and then we can see everyone?
Oh, you can't see me. Sorry, there we go.
Thank you. I was just interested, you did mention the ESG, the environment, social and governance. In PDs, are you seeing that coming forward more instead of WHS terminology, or it's not quite coming through into that document?
I haven't, interestingly, I haven't seen that change only at an executive level. So this year I had the first executive role where it was Director of Health, Safety, ESG. So that was the first time I had seen it. It was in a manufacturing organisation, and they're a global business, so it made me wonder whether maybe that's the global connotation as well.
Okay, so we might see a little bit more of that emerging over the next 12 to 18 months, maybe. Yeah,
perhaps. Yeah. So, and I think environmental, of course, environmental is such a focus at the moment, and it does make sense to see sustainability and environment merging, but I guess it's got a couple of different homes, so it is interesting to see it joining with the WHS family.
Very much so. The other one was in your presentation talking about the life cycle, and I love that way. I love the presentation. Thank you. The divorce stage, it can be extremely messy, as we all know. As a recruiter, you must get so many stories from candidates around this, or even employers about this process. Is there anything that can make it easier, better? I sort of thought you glossed over that a little bit too quickly. Is there anything that, or do you just let go? You've just got to let go.
I think, if a candidate has made, if an employee has made up their mind to leave an organisation, certainly unpack that with them around why they're leaving. But usually, if they've made up their mind, we've seen it happen, counter offers, and asking them to stay. They'll still be gone within 6 months. That's what the stats say, because it was in their head to already leave, and so whatever you can do to make it better might not be enough. So certainly, I would say sometimes it's better to let them go, unless of course it is something that you can fix. It might be something tangible. Might be that, well, you had said that they couldn't work 4 days from home and they really needed that 4th day. So certainly unpacking it, but again, as I said, once they've made up their mind and they've put their toe in the water, so to speak, usually they're gone.
Okay, thank you very much for that wise information. So apologies to everybody online for hogging the questions. I certainly would encourage you to tap into Helen's expertise while she actually is available online. So I'd open up to see if anybody else has got a question, and to put your camera on so Helen can see you as you're asking that question.
I've just got a question. I was interested when you're talking about make sure you know how your employees tick. What sort of ways can you do that without, prying?
I think getting to know them as an individual, not just an employee. So, what's important to them outside of work, rather than just that work piece. So, and then, but also, what's important to their careers. Are you having regular career discussions with them about what's next for them? Is there any training courses that they need? Do they see themselves as a successor? I know a really good EHS leader, for example, that within that first sort of 3 months, she's already asking them, what they want to do next. Are there any roles in this organisation that you can see now that you'd like to be in? And I think, for an employee, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say, actually, this is where I want to be. This is what I love doing. Or it's okay to show a bit of ambition as well and say, well, actually, I would like your role in 3 years' time, or whatever that is. So I think it's the whole person, getting to know the whole person, what makes them tick from a home perspective as well as that work perspective, and having the career discussions early on.
Thanks, Helen. That's great.
Has anyone had that? Has anyone had a really great onboarding where that's happened for them? Not really.
Oh, there's going to be deadly silence on that one, Helen.
Helen, I wanted to ask a question. It's Cameron here.
Hi, Cameron.
I suppose, and it comes into a bit of what you were just discussing about unpacking, but retention's the biggest thing. Obviously retention of staff is the cheapest option if you can retain your staff and not turn them over as quickly. What are companies out there offering? Not that I'm after an offer, but I'm looking at, how to retain our own staff, and what funky things are they doing?
It's been, no, that's a really good question. There have been organisations, and I think, how I'm answering that is the fact too that a lot of organisations have been struggling to get people back into the office in many cases. So some organisations have been doing things like offering lunches, free lunches now. So that's part of the employees package, that lunch is provided for them. Again, another incentive to get back into the office, but that's certainly something we've been seeing. And then I think it also goes down to, many organisations have included bonuses where maybe they didn't have that before. So bonuses are attracted to KPIs have certainly been coming in. Even some of the organisations I've worked for in private healthcare who didn't have that as part of their structure before have started to introduce that. And then just, you know, more team building as well, which has been, I think, successful in many ways, in particularly post-COVID, when we probably lost a little bit of that team because we were all working so remotely. But, you know, again, it's just conscious that there are recruiters out there who are probably calling your staff quite regularly about opportunities. And so, you know, sometimes they will get swayed to look at something else. So I think it's also making sure you have that really open relationship with them, and they can talk to you about that as well. So, you know, sometimes that will help retain them if they come to you and say, hey, you know, I've been approached about this particular role that looks really good. You know, do you think it's the next role for me, or what do you think? And of course you will be objective, but yeah, that is a good way as well.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry. The other thing I have seen some organisations do is transport. So there are some organisations now that are providing Myki cards for people who are coming back into the office, and car parking. And those are the organisations where, you know, it's the 3 day per week, 2 or 3 day per week in the office, and the rest at home.
Okay, no, thanks. That's good.
Yes, it certainly seems to be quite a different job market these days around the flexible work.
Yeah, very much so. And I think it's the organisations selling to the employees, the prospective employees. I know that's been the case for a little while, but I've probably seen the up the ante on that as well. I think, and, you know, just talking from experience, a couple of recruitment processes I've got on the go now, and you know, I'll be really honest, starting to feel a little bit nervous because the organisations are taking too long between the first interview and the second interview. And I know that I potentially can't keep those candidates warm for 2 weeks between the first and the second interview when there's other roles out there and they're actively looking. So it's just organisations just being smart about this whole process.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the dating analogy that, yeah, you've got to move fast. You can't delay weeks between the two events. If you
like them, yeah, if you like them, grab them, you're in.
Helen,
excellent.
I was just wondering, Helen, from your personal perspective for you, as it's changed so much, how do you find that? Are you finding it stimulating that you've had to, you know, rethink how you approach it?
Can you see my grey hair?
or is it stressful?
No, so if you speak to any recruiter, I think we're all in the same boat. Like we've worked the hardest over the past 3 years than what we ever have. And I think, yeah, the job market, candidates are a little bit flaky, and I'll say that with, you know, the greatest respect, and say that it's only a minority, but there is a trust issue sometimes that we didn't have before. You know, I constantly feel like I'm somebody's mother, or somebody's nagging wife, in terms of always, you know, following up with every phone call. Are you looking at anything else? Are you interviewing for anything else? You know, how are you feeling about this role? So always asking for their honest feedback as well, so there are no surprises. Because you know, as I said before during the presentation, sometimes there's been, you know, candidates who have been a little bit half-hearted, and that's really disappointing. Christina,
yeah, hi Helen. Hi. Helen, so I work in the public service area, so things like, you know, bonuses, lunches, that's not possible for us. I've lost, you know, I've had difficulty recruiting, you know, great people because they get fantastic offers elsewhere, and I've had to leave kind of fairly early. You know, they had other jobs in the pipeline and they took ours whilst, you know, another one was taking ages to recruit. I really liked the idea about start talking about your future in the first 3 months. I haven't done that before. I often do it at around 6 months, you know, let's work out, but I like that. Any other, I suppose, the engagement through, you know, the onboarding process, but any other advice for how we can capture and engage people? I mean, I suppose the other thing I see is the same people coming, being presented to us. I have used recruitment and I'm getting the same people over several years. That just really, we've already interviewed and deemed not suitable.
Yeah, I think, firstly, just on that last point, there is a lack of talent coming through.
Yeah.
I did actually try to look at university numbers for this presentation, and I couldn't find that. It'd be really interesting to know how many graduates are coming through, because it does seem to be a profession that's overlooked. And I guess sometimes it's about, as we said, growing your own if you can do that. And I understand, appreciate that sometimes you can't do that. The other piece you were saying, I have worked with public sector clients previously, and there's been a major frustration my end, sometimes around getting the offer documentation out, or having to have police checks or other checks done, working with children checks done before the formal paperwork.
Health, so the vaccination stuff is just that we have fixed
serology reports, or I have seen organisations, a couple of private organisations I work with in your sector now release the offer documentation, and it is subject to, the employment is subject to, because people will know, right, if they've got any criminal history, they'll know if they've got a driver's license. So then they'll know all of that. So we have seen organisations to do that. So they will extend the offer, but it is subject to everything else coming through. That's better from an engagement perspective, because you're not going to lose people when someone else comes through with an offer before you do. And the other, I guess the other bit is just, a LinkedIn presence as well, social media presence. Most savvy job candidates are on LinkedIn. How is the organisation advertising itself? How are you, you as a leader, are you on there actively promoting roles, liking things so they can see what you're about? Because people want to work for people that they admire and respect and feel that they might know. So that's another way also of building, the organisation's profile, but also your profile. But I know many of your contemporaries in hospitals are finding it very difficult to recruit at the moment. And again, I think too, because are you able to offer flexibility?
Look, a bit, but it's really hard to say to someone, you can work Monday, Tuesday, Friday at home, when if something happens, we need to be able to respond. It makes it really difficult. What I say is, if you've got nothing on, you've got no reason to be here, and there's someone else of which there's 2 OHS people to cover, you can work from home. But we're up and off and out, they're up and off and out at our sites a lot. So it does make it a bit tricky. So we can try and be flexible, but it's really hard to be structured flexible.
Yes. No, I absolutely appreciate that. And, it is difficult because most people are now looking for that flexibility, which I know makes it hard. The other part would be, I understand that you have really great salary packaging options. And if you haven't worked in health or not-for-profit, sometimes that's a little bit of a mystery. So, I know some organisations I've worked for, and I don't know what you do, but they will actually give a brochure explaining it all, and also a calculator saying this is what the offer will be, but this is what. And that's been a great way, even at that recruitment stage, to be able for a recruiter, to be able to say to potential candidates, well, this is what your actual take-home pay would be if you took all the salary packaging options. So it is competitive.
Thank you.
I just picked up one point you mentioned, discussed in that question, was around the qualifications. What level of qualifications are you seeing being asked for by employers at the moment?
I haven't seen a huge demand for qualifications, to be frank. A lot of organisations are going back to the experience, but if they've got somebody who's got a degree, a bachelor degree at least, they'll probably always go with them. If there's 2 to choose from, if they've got somebody who's got a certificate and they've got somebody that's got a bachelor degree or higher, they're likely to go with the person with the bachelor degree. But again, it's almost like that's gone away a little bit. Experience now is being looked at really favourably. Sorry, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. This be your own brand, social media.
Yeah.
You talk about being active there. How important is it to have that your own image or your brand on LinkedIn or other platforms?
It's really important, I think, from an employer's perspective, but also if you're a prospective job candidate. So organisations, so I've got a real example of this. I presented a shortlist for an executive role to a managing director, and the head of people and culture was sitting in the room with the managing director. She was looking a little bit distracted, and what she was doing was, as I was talking about each director level person I was introducing to them, she was looking them up on LinkedIn. She was looking them up to see like what was important. She was relaying this to the managing director. Oh, they look really good. They've got some great connections and have a really live profile. Now that was in a manufacturing organisation, but important to them was bringing in a good leader that was well connected. And as a recruiter, the first thing I will always do is look on social media for the person that I'm about to talk to look at their background, their profile, and always comparing a CV to what's on the LinkedIn profile. So, that's from a candidate perspective. Absolutely, it's important. Then the other perspective is if you're a hiring manager, absolutely having strong connections on there, being on there regularly, because everything you like or share then goes out to networks. So if you are starting to advertise roles, it'll go out to more people as well.
So it's about pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone and getting onto social media.
It is, but in a professional context. So, yeah, professional context.
Yeah,
and it can, like, for example, I remember talking to an organisation that were hiring a marketing manager. That person wasn't on LinkedIn. They didn't get the job because for them, like, a marketing person should be on LinkedIn, and that was really important to them. And I think you'll find more and more. I reckon CVs will be obsolete at some stage. We'll just be looking at people's profiles, whether it's LinkedIn or another way.
Yep, great advice, and I think certainly it's something we could all do better ourselves. So thank you very much, Helen. So it's gone, it's well after 12:30, 12:40. We're going to have time for the AGM. So I'd love to thank Helen for the fabulous talk, and I really love the Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. I hope there's some lovely red in your life somewhere today. And yeah, we look forward to maybe a follow-up again, towards the end of the year or next year as to where the job market is. And yeah, it's an exciting field. So I'm still loving my career, and I just wish there were more younger people coming in. It's yeah, we need young ones.
It is the best career, and it offers so many opportunities, and you all have that impact of being able to make a difference. So thank you very much, and happy dating.
Okay, thanks, Helen. Appreciate your time.
Bye.
Thanks, Helen.
Okay, well, hopefully, if you'd like to have another look at Helen's presentation and possibly reflect on the employee life cycle, whether as a candidate or an employer, I think we can always do things better. And I think, as Helen said, it's all about building up trust and having those conversations with your colleagues or your manager on a regular basis. So I think that was a very enlightening presentation, even though it was done in a light-hearted Valentine's Day manner. So another fabulous talk to go into our bank of talks on the website, which hopefully you'll promote and use yourselves on a regular basis.
We might have to promote it on LinkedIn, Nan.
Yeah, there actually is a Central Safety Group LinkedIn group, which Ross set up.
Better get in and like it then.
Well, maybe that's a good point. I might have to just send you all the link. But yes, I think the whole thing about having that profile and making sure you are sort of regularly using LinkedIn, I think it is a very powerful tool. And as Helen says, she feels that CVs are going to disappear, and you'll be your LinkedIn profile will be your testament to who you are and what you are. Scary stuff. Oh boy. So there we go. I'm just going to turn over to the AGM now. So if you can sort of, I think all the recordings turned off.
Not yet. I thought we were just going to mention next month.
Oh, sorry. Okay, next month, my running sheet. Thank you, Marina. We've had to change the dates for March and April because of the March long weekend and then the Easter break. So please make a note that our next presentation will be on Wednesday, the 15th of March, and the following one will be on April the 18th. We will confirm the speakers close to that date, but I think you'll find they're going to be very entertaining, informative speakers. So we look forward to presenting that to you in the near future. So thank you very much for your time.